Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach and welcome to another player profile. We're going to talk about a fella that I didn't mention in the SuperCoach forward line discussion. I talked about a number of players, but it is fair to say, as a few of the comments did point out, definitely this fella is worth a mention in terms of breakout contenders. Jade Gresham. Now, obviously, he's priced around that early to mid 400 mark, and certainly a former high pick. I think it was pick 18 back in the day. Has been building steadily. He's played the 62 games now, I think it is, 22 years old. Had a reasonable increase in the numbers last year, went from 66 to nearly 80. Everything is sort of suggesting that he fits the bill as a breakout contender. So I want to just talk about what I think about Gresham. And straight off the top, it's very difficult to say. I know that's probably not what you want to hear, but the fact is he falls into the category of we need to see his pre-season and where St Kilda are playing him. We need to see how much midfield time he could get because, yes, you can score well as a forward, but we really want these guys getting at least reasonable midfield time. Doesn't have to be pure mid. So just off the top, we can't make an absolute call at this stage. If you're listening to this in a couple of weeks' time, that might be when we have a bit more clarity. But at the moment, we can only deal with what we know. And what we do know in terms of match plays, there was a match simulation the other day, and he did play quite a bit through the midfield, which you often see because you're going to trial guys who potentially could make that move. And if they do well enough, then you might wonder. But St Kilda are certainly going to be looking to inject some different players through the midfield. Obviously, Hannabury's in there, but Armitage is getting older. Stephen is getting older. Obviously, Ross and Steele, certainly prime movers through there. But guys like Billings and Gresham, I think, are going to spend more time. And I think they're two guys that have to be considered. Average 79 and 89 last year, or 79 and 80, I should say, was the Billings average. So they're certainly guys who are priced similar and will be vying for similar roles. They'll be both hoping that they can get a decent amount of time through the midfield. Now, Gresham, let's have a look at a few of the numbers. Last year, 79.1 average. That was off the back of 61 in 2016 and then 66 in 2017. 500s last year. 2 scores above the 115 mark and 12 below 80 with a high score of 131. We shouldn't really judge him too much on last year in its entirety because, he played more of that small forward role. Very creative, very smart footballer. But in a struggling team, in that sort of position, there's always going to be inconsistencies, and we saw that with some scores below 80. But look, he did certainly take a step last year. He was the only player in his position, when they actually specify them, champion data, into positions to be elite in disposals, goals, and score assists. So it was a mini breakout year. He certainly established himself, and no doubt that's why many people are commenting in regards to discussing him for 2019 SuperCoach. So what will need to happen, we'll need to see a bit more mid-time. There's no doubt about that. Is he in my team at the moment? That's always a defining factor. The best endorsement is picking a bloke, and he's not in my team at the minute. Reason being, I just feel as if Billings might be a slightly better option than him. That's not to say I'll be picking Billings, but I think you can sort of sometimes group players together. And I think Billings will just get a little bit more opportunity through that midfield. I think Gresham will still play a reasonable amount of time forward. This is all just a guess, obviously. I think we'll see his midfield minutes go up, and I think he could average around 90, but I'm not sure that's enough. I personally don't see him exploding into an out-and-out star and averaging mid to high 90s. I just don't see it. And again, that's a gut call. That's just my opinion, my prediction. I just don't know if he's quite ready to absolutely tear a game apart through the middle. Because I just don't think he'll get that amount of opportunity because he is such a good forward, and I think St Kilda will increase his numbers through the midfield, but I still think they rate him so highly in what he can do up in attack. And I just think he still is in the early stages of his career. I know he's played the 62 games, but he hasn't had a full pre-season to date. And you might say, well, imagine what he can do when he does get one. But where's his engine at? Is that what might just hold him back from playing through the middle? Be very interesting to see. I mean, at the end of the day, he isn't in my team at the moment. There are probably a few other guys that I am looking at. As I've mentioned, the F3 position is probably the one most up in the air for me at the moment. I could rejig a couple of things to open up a little bit more coin and go Dunkley. I probably even like McLean a little bit more than Dunkley. Even someone like Tim Kelly could be a thought process. And then if we go a little bit further down, I'm a big fan of Christian Petrarca. I just don't think he's going to get the time in such a strong Melbourne midfield. And then I have been considering Billings. I really think you look at the back end of last year where he did move higher up the ground. I think we've seen him play some good footy, and I'm expecting a big season from him. If you're of the opinion that Gresham's just as good a case, if not better, than some of those guys, then fair enough. But we will need to see. The defining factor will be where he plays the majority of his JLT matches and practice games. I try to avoid player profiles that, highly depend on where they line up in their positions, because it does end up me sort of saying, well, this is what I think right now, but in 2 or 3 weeks that could totally change because he might line up here or there. So I try to avoid those conversations for guys that really we need to know exactly what their role is from the club and defined in the game. So it isn't the most informative one, but I think he should be on your radar. He isn't super high on mine, to be fair, but he's definitely got enough class and enough quality, and I think he will be a guy that is a very impressive player in years to come. Will that be this year? We'll have to wait and see. Be very interesting to see where he lines up through the pre-season. He's certainly something that we could, discuss long and hard about, because he has been reasonably popular. I didn't check the percentages, but certainly just from the comments, if people aren't picking him, they're certainly thinking about him. So certainly keep your eyes peeled in terms of where he is lining up and how he's training, because I think they'll be very interesting. But look, if you've got any more players you'd like me to take a look at, by all means, that'd be great. Comment away. I think probably I will keep rolling out the profiles. I wouldn't mind trialing a bit of a lengthy sort of podcast, real sort of general discussion, not really start at a point and see where we get to. I wouldn't mind doing that, and people can listen to as much or as little as that as they want, but I'll see how we go with that next week. And I can't wait for footy to start. I mean, I've been hanging out for some actual games and some actual content to start flowing, to actually make some hard calls on some of these guys, because we just need the evidence of where they're playing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some matches soon. But AFLX isn't too far away. Not that that'll be a great indicator, but it will be footy of some description, which will be nice. But look, I'll be back very soon, no doubt, with some player profiles and more SuperCoach content. And I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.